you. Oh, hi! Welcome to Wonderland. I'm not vlogging this year, or so I said, so I'm enjoying a beer here in the park. Trying to get some rides in, get some credits, but there's a reason why I'm actually doing this video, is that I realized that I was not able prior to this day, able to give you a full rundown and ranking of all the coasters here in Wonderland. Well, they just recently opened their kids credits for anyone to ride. So after over 10 years of trying to get on Taxi Jam, maybe 20 almost, yeah, we're gonna be able to do that today. And I'm gonna be able to rank all the rides here in the park from the best to the worst. So let's do a little tour of Wonderland with my beer, and we'll go through the top 18 coasters here in Wonderland ranked from worst to best. Just exiting Guardian. Now, this is the first time I've rode this ride since I did a documentary on the construction of it. 10 years later, it's a bit frustrating. Normally I'd say this is a pretty decent ride. It's a dark ride, it's unique for Canada's Wonderland. It definitely deserves a little bit of praise, but unfortunately a lot of problems with the ride today. Yes, they had it up and running after a little bit of downtime at the start of the season. There was 2 breakdowns during the wait that I had. The ride itself was running perfectly fine. However, there were other issues at play. Mainly, I was all excited because I thought I was going to get a record score on the ride this time. The third screen in the actual outlay when you're inside the mountain wasn't working at all, so you had just a Windows error screen just sitting up there. It was part of the gameplay, so it definitely took away from the experience substantially. In fact, very underwhelming. The theming, I have to say, after 10 years of this ride existing, it really needs a little bit of a kick up because, yeah, it just doesn't seem like, well, they put that money into the baggage handling system. It would have made more sense if they added a little bit more theming to the ride, because some of the stuff wasn't working. Some lights weren't working, no smoke effects in the Dragon Confrontation Room, a whole world of problems and issues that I just was not impressed with. And then finally, at the very end of the experience, it was out of focus on the actual score screen. So the score screen that you see at the end when you can see what you actually got, yeah, I couldn't even see it really well because it was completely out of focus. So when it comes to a technical standpoint, and I deal with technical stuff, that is 0 marks on that ride. It really has not been maintained the way it should be. And what was supposedly a jewel in the crown as far as Wonderland's offering is really now one of the worst in the park. Hallmark moment has been reached with the fact that I finally got this credit. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing great. Certainly appreciative of the park that they've finally allowed us to get these credits in, because I never have to do it again. At number 16, we have Silver Streak, a Vekoma family suspended coaster. Now, I've done Dragonfly at Dollywood since this ride, or like the first time that I rode it, and I will admit it is a much smoother and excellent version of this model of ride. If Wonderland wants to wholesale replace this ride with a Dragonfly clone, I would not object. It's decent, there's not much to it. It's a good little starter for kids that want to try something a little different when the bigger coasters get scary, but there's barely any force on it. That little S turn in the middle is kind of interesting because it takes a little bit of speed into it. But really the first sort of drop and scoop kind of makes you think of how well developed those newer versions of the Vekoma suspended family coasters are. So a prototype, really, it's held up pretty well, but it really should be called the Jangle Express, because boy, that thing jangles throughout the course. It's just like the entire time. You can barely hear me, but Jangle Express, number 15. So many legendary coasters from my own childhood, and Ghoster Coaster is up there, and it is our number 15 here of best coasters here at Wonderland. Really, the best part about this coaster is that nostalgia has served it well, as it hasn't changed much over the years outside of the Scooby-Doo overlay, which it no longer has. On to number 14 here in Alpen, which has been a very heated point of discussion this year, as there's clearly construction going on in this area for a possible project next year. Am I going to discuss that? No, not in this particular video. But Thunder Run is number 14. Really a coaster that holds a special place in my heart as well. Every year I come to Wonderland, I hail Herman as he appears on the second rotation through the mountain. Problem is that we were promised new lighting and effects inside Thunder Run this year, maybe even last year, and still nothing really has been improved. Maybe a little bit darker inside the Herman chamber, but outside of that, it's still a little bit underwhelming. It could be a better experience. Come on, Wonderland, we need some smoke, some better lighting effects. Look at what Cedar Point did with Magnum XL 200. There's a lot of potential that could be done with this ride. I'm hoping once this stuff happens in this area around here, that we'll see maybe some development with Thunder Run in the future, at least with its theming, because it's definitely underserved. Let's go. Thunder Run deserves a little bit more of a higher ranking than 14. But I think with a couple of changes, that would definitely happen. Choo-choo! Louder, choo-choo! I also hate choo-choo. We need to get rid of that. It really took away from what was a spooky experience originally with Thunder Run. We need to get back to that. It's getting a little cheesy, and I don't think it really fits in this area. Let's hope in 2025 that turns around. Snoopy's Racing Railway. I'm glad that I finally was able to get on it. For families, decent. You get 2 circuits around. There's some interactive elements within the course of the ride, which is cool. Well-launched coaster. I thought it was going to be a little bit snappier than it was based on reviews from enthusiasts, but it certainly didn't turn out to be that case. Yeah, I'd say it's probably one of the better children's rides here. Nothing crazy in G's or anything like that. Yeah, it was good for the families, that's for sure.
We helped Mountie Charlie Brown put some bad birds behind bars.
It is a one and done with Time Warp. I was kind of like, this is technically my last ride today, and nothing has changed about that ride. Wow, it's terrible. It is so bad. I know I complained about it a lot, or at least in a couple of videos that I did in the past. It didn't happen this time, but later in the season on a sweaty day, the ride can smell bad because of those pads. Operations, they told me to go up a step and my shoulders were in the pad. I'm like, what are you guys doing? That doesn't make any sense. So that was a little bit weird. And then you get on the thing, it's horrible. It's just so rattly. I had no headache, but here it is now just because of that. So that's my last ride possibly today. This is a ride I'll ride once a year, and then basically I'll only ride again if there's a guest in the park that hasn't ridden it before, and I want the honor to going on that ride with them for the first time, so that way they can share the experience of how horrible it is with me as well. That's Time Warp. Why? Oh my god, it's terrible. It's a piece of trash. Flight deck. These people are going back on it. I can't believe it. Really, there's going to be a point in my life where I will have ridden my last SLC. Boy, will it be a great day that I won't be able to celebrate, because yeah, these rides are just terrible. So much rattle and shake. There's nothing that you can do to this anymore. I don't even care if you put a new train on it. Just get rid of the thing, even though it's number 10, because you know it does give you a better ride than some kids coasters and Thunder Run technically. But wow, so much of a migraine. Glad that I've done my one ride of the year. Will not be doing another one. It was in the back. That's all I ask of it. Goodbye, Flight Deck. Until next year. Fly, the Mack Wild Mouse. Now this ride's been here for 20 years, and at the time it represented a real down point in the park, because it seemed like we would never get another thrill ride, or at least coaster, in this park in the early 2000s. But this ride's held out well. Not too rough, not too jarring, good amount of speed. I wouldn't say it was crazy exciting or anything, and it certainly doesn't heat up through the day and change in ride experience throughout the course of the day. But yeah, for a family excursion, definitely one of the better Wild Mouses out there, and a decent ride for Wonderland. We have a lot of rides for kids here, and when you think about it in complement with the kids coasters and the family coasters, it represents almost half of what Wonderland has to offer. So really they are a park that focuses on families, and Fly is a great example of one of those. Not the greatest coaster, but definitely one of the greatest for families here at Wonderland. Number 9, and that is Dragonfire. Now, this is really a legendary ride that is due for a documentary that's coming up definitely on the channel. What is Dragonfire? Really, for myself, it was the first ride that I feared going on as a roller coaster. So it really is kind of like a benchmark ride for a lot of people in the park. It's still legendary to this day, and they've kept it for a reason because of that. It's still one of the best themed roller coasters in this park still, because they don't put that much money into the overhead of the theming of the new rides here. So yeah, Dragonfire is still one of the best ones. It's actually got a proper statue in the front, only to compete with Leviathan. Outside of that, yeah, those loops, definitely the G's in them are crazy and great out-inducing as per usual. Corkscrew, a little bit rough, but a little smoother than what I remember. It used to be really rough back in the day, but really it is a must-do ride if you come here. Today it's 2-train service, so it's a walk-on. Excellent ride, Dragonfire. Before we leave Frontier Canada, I can't forget Mindbuster, which is number 8 on our list. Now this is another one of those legendary rides, still to this day one of the most well-known in Canada for the legacy that it has as being one of the largest coasters, or the largest coaster in Canada for many, many years. It's certainly acting its age now though. It was a very rough ride. It kind of reminded me of what Outlaw Run was at Silver Dollar City. Completely different design of ride. Outlaw Run is a rough ride, and if you're not into rough wood coasters, if you're not into wood coasters in general, you just can't ride a ride like Mindbuster, because even though they've done some reprofiling on the track this year, it's barely noticeable because it is that shaky. I've been on a lot of wood coasters in the last year, and I have to say that Wonderlands are certainly earning its reputation as being some of the roughest out there. I think the temperature doesn't really help them that much, but yeah, they're certainly acting up their age, even though they're doing their best to keep them as smooth as possible. Mindbuster is really a relentless ride and rough. I still do highly rate it though. The lights were on in the tunnel, which was kind of unusual, but outside of that, still the same ride. It hasn't been the same since that third airtime hill leading in to the turnaround was reprofiled into just one, or two became one. So yeah, it is what it is. Mindbuster, number 8, my favorite number. A very surprising addition at number 7 is the Bat. I found it actually not that rough this year. Got a front seat ride. It's got the rattle that you'd expect of a Vekoma of this age, but I feel it's been fairly well maintained. Because of that, it's gone high up on my rankings this year. I don't really think boomerangs are all that great. New cushions in the back of the head makes for a very comfortable ride in that loop coming through the back.
Starts and ends in the exact same spot.
Now my favorite ride is Leviathan. No, my favorite ride is Yukon Striker and Leviathan. Yeah, but they're about the same. Wait, we should go on the terrifying and dragon pie. You don't want to talk much? Yeah, I do want to
Smooth. I feel like it's very well maintained. Because of that, it deserves its marks as it gets. The paint job is getting a little bit, dated, even though it was done a couple years back. But I was surprised. It wasn't that bad. And also got on it pretty early. So if you do get to the park, I would recommend getting on it early. It's actually worth it, I'd say. It's in the top dozen or top half of the rides here. It's running pretty consistently and well and not too much rattles. So let's hope it's like that all season. The Bat, number 7 on my list. Let's carry on. Wild Beast. Now this ride is really has a special place in my heart in this park. It's always been one of my favorite rides. So thus it's pretty high on my list here, as I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't consider it that good of a ride. But when you consider the wood rides here, or the wood coasters, this is the least rough. Ghost to Coaster doesn't really count in that regard because, well, it just doesn't get the speed in order to give it a fair analysis in regards to that. But in regards to this ride, fantastic. I definitely feel like it's this park's outlaw run because it's just so shaky and rattly, and really you have to hold on throughout. They've done a lot of reprofiling work on it. It hasn't really helped all that much over the years, unfortunately. I find that, it's a pretty rough ride, and you definitely see the difference between the smoother steel ones, or steel coasters, and these coasters as far as what we're getting used to in the modern age. But if you like a wild ride, it's Wild Beast, number 6. Looked at my rankings and I look at them again, and then I found Backlot Stunt Coaster as number 5 this year. I'm kind of shocked. It's a walk-on right now, so I'm going to do that because I might as well. I'm over here by Behemoth, and what can I say? I've been on many versions of this ride, without question. I've been on all of them, as a matter of fact. It's the fastest launch coaster in Canada. Maybe not for long, maybe not next year, but for now, it is. In fact, that will be beat if Thunderbolt manages to open in Playland in Vancouver, but we'll see about that. But for now, we have the best launch coaster in Canada. Now, it is a clone. It's just a fun little ride. Gray out guaranteeing every time on that spiral. I don't like the fact that Wonderland decided not to put that much money into the effects anymore and just basically let them die off. So you don't have that helicopter scene, which kind of sucks. But it's still a crazy, tremendous launch. In fact, I found it a little less heavy than I have in prior seasons. I don't know why that is. An amazing blackout section, which I love. Always surprises me with the speed and just the dips that it takes before you come into that final drop into the water feature, which isn't a water feature. I'm getting out of breath on this review. I'm going to go on the ride. The legendary coaster itself, Vortex, behind me, is number 4, would you believe, here in Canada's Wonderland's top rides. That's right, I did not misstep on that. Number 4. An important part of my evaluation of rides is the effect that I feel in the brake run, and every single time I ride Vortex, it never disappoints. In fact, it leaves you begging for more, which any good thing should do. It is an Aero classic, possibly one of the best coasters ever that Aero produced, and long may it stand. This park loves this ride, and probably for the same reasons that I do. They know that when they got it, they had a gem on their hands. It was the first major build for the park's history, outside of when it first actually opened. First custom build, and wow, has it lived up to expectation over 30 years. It's a brilliant ride. Really, there's just nothing that I can say more about it. There's not a bad seat on the train. It's not rough, really. There is that one point where you come out of the top turnaround, where you have that little sort of hold, but that's always been there. it's the best. If there were no other major coasters here, say B&Ms, then probably Vortex would be number one. Vortex, can't get enough of it. In fact, I'm gonna go on another ride right now. That's my number 4. At number 3, and the start of this whole channel back 5 years ago was the opening of Yukon Striker in 2019. Still my 3rd best ride here in the park. An incredible first drop, the best inversion in the park as far as I'm concerned with that wing over leading into the loop. There's crazy G's coming out of the loop itself, which I know is highly praised among enthusiasts. Probably the best drop on a dive coaster, maybe 2nd best. I still kind of do rate SheiKra a little bit better, even though it's not as high and not as wide, but at the same time, for a Canadian roller coaster, this is an excellent ride. I do find it does taper off a bit in the helix, but I do recognize that that is homage to Skyrider, and that's why it's there. So why not keep it? Definitely impressive. Definitely one of the best rides here going still. It's not that old, but it may have its run for the money in 2025. We shall see. Until I got 2 rides on it, Leviathan behind me. Now this is normally my number 1 coaster here, but it's not number 1 this year, shockingly enough. I wanted to get another ride later in the day. It is mid-May and it's 33 degrees today. It is quite hot for a May day. And I'm not complaining because that ride was running stealthily fast. It's a great ride, but it's just not my number 1 here in the park anymore. It just leaves you begging for more, doesn't it, Leviathan? And even when it's running super fast, I can't help but think that neck and neck with the number 1 coaster that I think is running in this park in 2024, it just misses out that slight bit. Tremendous speed, incredible airtime on those low-profile airtime hills. The turnarounds are great, but yeah, they're just not the best. There's one more that's the best. It's newly at number 1 in my rankings. And at number 1, we have the roller coaster that really put this place on the map. Behemoth. The legend itself. The coaster that changed this park forever. Running trimless. At least the first trim was run, but then the second trim, it did not engage, so we got a very fast, quick ride. It's an airtime machine. I have to admit, my favorite part of this ride is how much it pulls you out of that teardrop turnaround. It really just sucks you with every G-force imaginable to get you in the second half of this course. It really is a phenomenal ride. Why it beats Leviathan? Because it just gives you exactly what you want. You're never left leaving Behemoth thinking, I wish there was a little bit more. It is the full package. Maybe a little bit better of a first drop as is produced on Leviathan. And yes, it doesn't carry the course with the speed Leviathan does. But yeah, that floater airtime, it's really one of the best in the business. And there's people from around the world that come because of the legendary amount of airtime on this ride. So if you get a trimless one on it, it really could be one of the best in the world without question. It's definitely one of the best B&M hypers. I've been on most of them. It's really excellent and taller than most of them as well. So you do get that little bit extra kick. Behemoth, the best ride here in 2024 as far as I'm concerned at Canada's Wonderland. Maybe that will change later on in the year, but for now, the contest, well, there is no one. Thank you everybody for joining us on a very unusual video, and one that's been long overdue, as I've never ranked the coasters, as I said at the beginning of the intro here. But now they've finally been done. I could give a thorough perspective of every ride, at least roller coaster wise, that I enjoyed, or at least as far as my level of enjoyment here in the park. Will there be one for the flats? I think very soon. As a matter of fact, it's overdue at the King of Flat Rides park that I'm in right now, so stay tuned for that. I will say, having ridden every ride in the park today, coaster-wise, I'm left a little bit underwhelmed. Maybe I'm spoiled because I went to Top Thrill 2 just shortly 3 weeks ago, but it seems like a lot of the rides here You know, we're dealing with what is considered a world-class park, and I think some of the thrills here are just everything sort of is just a smidge below what you would expect from a world-class ride. So hopefully in 2025, maybe Wonderland has something in their pockets, up their sleeves, whatever which way you want the expression to go, to solve that issue with this mountain behind me. Curious enough, it's certainly going to take part in whatever they have planned for the next year. And I'm certainly looking forward to it. And we're going to have to probably readjust this list when that time comes. But for now, thanks for watching, guys.